famous outlaw who stole from the rich and gave to the poor, an ogre who just wanted to enjoy his swamp, and a rat who wanted to cook 5-star dishes. They all had one thing in common. They were nice to people around them, often doing selfless deeds, even helping those who hated them. But were these characters sinless? Of course not. Many of them had a list of crimes that would get them some very gruesome punishments. But which character's punishment was the worst? That's what we're gonna find out today. And we'll start with Notre Dame's most famous bell ringer. Despite spending his entire life being mocked, isolated, and told he was a monster, Quasimodo still grew up kinder than almost everyone around him. When Esmeralda was sentenced to death, Quasimodo risked everything to save her, carrying her into Notre Dame and shouting in front of an angry crowd. He never cared that helping her would make him a target. He just knew it was the right thing to do. And how many people are ready to do the right thing when the whole world is against them? Unlike many citizens of Paris, Quasimodo judged people by their actions rather than their appearance. But being a nice, lovable character doesn't automatically make you a law-abiding citizen. When Esmeralda was condemned by the authorities, Quasimodo carried her into Notre Dame Cathedral against the orders of the King's Justice. Under late 15th century French law, cathedral sanctuary was a recognized legal custom. Once she reached church grounds, authorities often couldn't lawfully seize her without church approval, because church sanctuary offered temporary protection to allow time for the fugitive to make amends, seek a pardon, or confess. So, despite technically obstructing an execution, Quasimodo was ironically protected by ecclesiastical law. When Frollo launched his assault on Notre Dame, armed soldiers attempted to storm the cathedral, so Quasimodo fought back by throwing large stones at them and pouring molten copper onto the attackers. Several soldiers were directly targeted by Quasimodo's attacks. Throwing stones and molten copper at people counts as attempted murder. This could carry a death sentence in medieval France. But since Frollo died in the end and Quasimodo became an accepted member of society, we can safely assume that the church forgave him for his crimes and acquitted him of all charges. Quasimodo final count, acquitted of all charges. And now, let's go to medieval England, where an outlaw Robin Hood was, well, Robin the Hood. Robin Hood stole so he could help out the poor. While most outlaws robbed people because they wanted money, Robin cared for the oppressed. When the Rabbit family was robbed by Prince John's men, Robin gave them the money. He distributed money to poor families, protected vulnerable villagers, and openly stood against corruption despite knowing it could get him executed. Unlike most rebels in medieval stories, Robin never seemed interested in power or personal gain. Unfortunately, medieval courts weren't particularly known to excuse crimes because of charitable motives. Robin stole a large quantity of gold from Prince John. Stealing from the prince was considered an offense against the crown itself. Under 12th century English law, the theft of royal property would be punishable by hanging. Robin Hood running count, death by hanging. During the archery tournament, Robin rescued Maid Marian and attacked the guards. During the escape, he assaulted numerous royal soldiers and resisted arrest through violence. Assaulting soldiers of the crown was a serious felony. It was viewed as an attack on the king's authority. And in Robin's case, as he was a wanted outlaw, it would be another death sentence. Robin Hood running count, death by hanging times 2. In the end, Robin and Little John broke into Nottingham Castle to rescue prisoners awaiting execution. This adds jailbreaking, aiding fugitives, and trespassing on royal property. And another death sentence. Robin Hood running count, death by hanging times 3. While Little John was helping the prisoners escape, Robin plundered the royal treasury. This adds another count of theft, and not just any theft, but yet again, theft of royal property. This was seen as treason and would often result in a death sentence, and in Robin's case, it would be another hanging, without doubt. Robin Hood running count, death by hanging times 4. But before we make the final sentence, let's not forget that King Richard returned to England. The king possessed the power to grant royal pardons and erase criminal liability. So, despite accumulating enough crimes to be the #1 outlaw in the country, Robin ultimately walks free because the one person above the law happened to like him. Final sentence, fully pardoned by royal decree. Now, let's travel to Australia, diving deep into the Pacific Ocean. Nemo was just a curious fish who wanted independence. Unlike his overprotective father, Marlin, Nemo wanted to explore the ocean and prove he could take care of himself. He was the right fish to have for a friend, as he wouldn't hesitate to help others, and despite being one small fish, he showed remarkable bravery. And after arguing with his father, Nemo swam into open water to touch a human boat. He ignored his father's advice and swam towards the boat. After being captured by a diver and placed inside Dr. Sherman's aquarium, Nemo joined the tank gang's escape plans. During the first attempt, Nemo deliberately jammed the aquarium's filtration system by placing a pebble inside the mechanism. When the plan failed, he later repeated the sabotage using a plastic tube. Under Australian law, intentionally damaging another person's property qualifies as vandalism and property damage, and damage under $5,000 can result in 2 years in prison, plus restitution for the damage. But Nemo is a minor, so his punishment would either be a simple repair of the damage or paying restitution. So a fish would be fixing a fish tank, and in Australia, that makes sense. Nemo final count, repair of damage / restitution. Now let's go to the secret world of toys, where the toys are alive, and the only human who knows that they are alive is one psycho kid. Woody was the kind of toy every child dreams of having. Loyal, brave, and willing to sacrifice himself for the good of others. Whenever another toy needed help, Woody was there to offer help and leadership. He rescued Buzz from Sid's house, saved Jessie from being shipped to Japan, and often risked his life to protect his friends. When Buzz Lightyear arrived, Woody became jealous of Andy's new favorite toy. Woody attempted to knock Buzz behind a desk, and while he never intended to throw Buzz out of the window, intentionally shoving somebody near an open window is still reckless behavior. Under California law, this would likely qualify as reckless endangerment. The punishment can be up to 1 year in prison. Woody running count, 1 year in prison. Years later, when Woody and other toys went to rescue Jessie from being shipped to Japan, they went through the airport, interfering with baggage processing, and ultimately reached aircraft loading zones without authorization. This would likely qualify as unauthorized entry into a secure airport area, punishable by up to 1 year imprisonment. Woody running count, 1 + 1 year in prison. Years later, Woody entered Second Chance Antiques after closing hours, without permission, while attempting to rescue Porky. He climbed through employee-only sections, entered restricted storage areas, and accessed private property. Under California law, this would qualify as criminal trespass. Since Woody entered for the purpose of retrieving property and organizing rescue operations rather than financial gain, courts would likely pursue the lesser offenses. The punishment would be 6 months in prison. Woody final count, 2 years and 6 months in prison. Now let's go to Paris, where one rat wanted to work as a cook for a famous restaurant. Remy was probably the only rat in history whose greatest dream wasn't stealing food from humans, but cooking for them. Remy appreciated the art of cooking. He spent years studying the work of the legendary chef Auguste Gusteau, and he just needed an opportunity to show his skills. Remy risked his life to improve dishes for customers who will never know he existed. Later, when Linguini discovered his secret, Remy could have easily abandoned him and pursued his own interests. Instead, he helped him. Unfortunately, French criminal law tends to be less interested in culinary excellence and more interested in whether the chef in question is secretly a rat. Remy secretly entered the kitchen of Gusteau's restaurant and began interfering with food preparation. This counts as unlawful access to a workplace. Employees generally need permission to be in food preparation areas. Random rodents definitely do, so this counts as a violation of a private space for which the punishment can be up to 1 year in prison under French law. Remy running count, 1 year in prison. Remy secretly prepared meals for paying customers while concealing his existence from both management and public health authorities. That counts as fraud, for which he would get 5 years in prison. Additionally, modern French food safety regulations are extremely strict. A restaurant allowing food preparation by an unlicensed rodent would likely face immediate closure. Remy running count, 1 + 5 years in prison plus restaurant closure. Customers were never informed that a rat was effectively the head chef. This counts as consumer fraud because information about food preparation was intentionally concealed. Admittedly, informing customers that their dinner was prepared by a rat might have affected purchasing, and that adds another 2 years in prison and a €300 fine to his sentence. Final sentence, 8 years in prison plus restaurant closure plus €300 fine. Now let's talk about the nicest thief in Agrabah. Aladdin regularly gave away food to hungry children despite barely having enough to survive himself. Unlike most thieves, he wasn't stealing out of greed. He was stealing because otherwise he wouldn't eat. Aladdin stole bread and other goods from market merchants. Under medieval Middle Eastern law, theft was a serious offense. Depending on the value stolen and the circumstances involved, punishments could be really harsh, and would often result in cutting off the thief's hand. Aladdin running count, mutilation of the hand. Later, Aladdin impersonated Prince Ali of Ababwa, despite obviously not being royalty. He used the false identity to obtain access to the palace and asked the Sultan to marry his daughter. This would qualify as fraud and false representation. Aladdin also deceived Princess Jasmine while pursuing marriage in the royal family. The punishment for it would be whipping plus public humiliation. Aladdin would be paraded through the streets wearing a humiliating tall cap while his crimes were loudly announced to the town. Aladdin final count, mutilation of the hand, plus whipping and public humiliation. And while Aladdin was impersonating a prince, a cat with 9 lives had its own crazy story. Puss in Boots was treated like a legendary hero. He saved villages and protected innocent people. Everywhere he went, people celebrated him. But before he was a hero, he was an outlaw. And the list of crimes he committed in the process would be enough for a set of brutal punishments. Along with Humpty Dumpty and Kitty Softpaws, Puss stole the magical beans from Jack and Jill. The group later used them to carry out a plan to locate the golden goose. Depending on the value of the stolen property, punishments could range from restitution and public whipping to mutilation or even death for particularly serious repeat offenders. Since the beans were extremely valuable and the theft was planned in advance, Puss would receive public shaming and branding on the hand with a hot iron, marking him as a thief for life. Puss running count, public shaming plus branding with hot iron. But stealing the beans was only the beginning. After reaching the giant's castle, Puss participated in the theft of the golden goose. Technically, this wasn't just ordinary theft. The goose was an extremely valuable living creature guarded on private property. Removing it without permission would qualify as grand larceny. And considering the enormous value of the golden goose, courts would treat it far more seriously than ordinary theft. Given the value involved and that it's not his first offense, Puss would face hand mutilation, as a reminder not to steal again, because the hot iron wasn't enough. Puss running count, public shaming plus branding with hot iron, plus mutilation. While escaping, Puss and his friends caused destruction throughout the town. Buildings, streets, and a bridge were damaged, and civilians were placed in danger as the giant creature rampaged through the area. Although Puss wasn't the only one responsible for the destruction, prosecutors could still argue that the chaos resulted directly from the theft itself. Since the destruction occurred because of the theft of the goose, Puss could be held financially liable for the damage. Puss running count, public shaming plus branding with hot iron, plus mutilation plus financial restitution. Years later, Puss broke into the governor's mansion while searching for information about the wishing star. He entered private property without authorization and later became involved in the theft of the magical map leading to the star itself. Unlawful entry into the residence of a nobleman or royal official combined with theft would be treated as an aggravating circumstance, and given the fact that he's a repeat offender, it would be death by hanging. Puss final, public shaming plus branding with hot iron plus mutilation plus financial restitution plus death by hanging. Finally, let's talk about everyone's favorite ogre. Shrek wanted one thing: to be left alone. Unfortunately, the universe ignored his wishes. Despite his intimidating appearance, Shrek consistently risked his life to save others. He rescued Fiona, defended Far Far Away multiple times, and even protected people who had previously treated him like a monster. Shrek spent most of his life alone in a swamp. Most people assumed every ogre was a bloodthirsty monster, so Shrek embraced solitude, away from people who saw him as a monster. Unfortunately, solitude became impossible when Lord Farquaad banished dozens of fairy tale creatures into Shrek's swamp. Suddenly, his home was overcrowded with talking donkeys, flying fairies, and creatures who had no respect for personal space. Wanting his swamp back, Shrek traveled to Duloc to confront Farquaad directly. Upon arriving in Duloc, Shrek became involved in Lord Farquaad's tournament. Farquaad then gives Shrek the mission to rescue Princess Fiona, and in exchange, he promises to remove the fairy tale creatures from Shrek's swamp. Despite this rough introduction, Shrek successfully completed Farquaad's mission and rescued Princess Fiona. The two fell in love, Dragon ate Farquaad, and Shrek unexpectedly became a married man. And for a brief period, his criminal career appeared finished. After marrying Fiona, Shrek traveled to the kingdom of Far, Far Away to meet her parents. And guess what? The king was not thrilled that his daughter had married an ogre. As tensions were on the rise inside the royal family, another problem emerged. The fairy godmother had spent years arranging a completely different future for Fiona and intended to remove Shrek from the picture entirely. Together with Donkey and Puss in Boots, Shrek entered the fairy godmother's potion factory with the intention of stealing a magical potion. Under early 15th century laws, burglary could result in execution, particularly when the crime involved valuable property. Shrek then stole the happily ever after potion itself, and that makes the whole offense much more serious. Grand larceny often resulted in execution by hanging, and that would be the case for Shrek as well if he was charged for these crimes. Shrek running count, death by hanging. Years later, tired of family life, Shrek made a disastrous bargain with Rumpelstiltskin. The deal rewrote reality itself. In the new timeline, Rumpelstiltskin ruled Far, Far Away, and Shrek became a wanted fugitive. Realizing he had accidentally destroyed his own life, Shrek joined the resistance against Rumpelstiltskin's government. Eventually, Shrek helped organize an armed rebellion against Rumpelstiltskin's regime. Whether Rumpelstiltskin deserved to rule is beside the point. Under medieval laws, taking up arms against the recognized ruler was treason, and it was punishable by death, often in some brutal way, and Rumpelstiltskin would certainly make sure to make it memorable. The notorious hanged, drawn, and quartered penalty was sometimes used for people who committed high treason. The condemned man was tied to a wooden frame and dragged by a horse through the streets to the place of execution. He was then hanged by the neck from a gallows, but cut down while still alive and conscious. In the end, he was finally beheaded, and his body was chopped into 4 quarters. And that gruesome punishment would be Shrek's potential punishment. But not to worry, Donkey and Puss in Boots would probably save him in time. Shrek final count, death by hanging plus death by hanging, drawn and quartered. So that was it, the sentences for the nice characters. They were nice, but they were also guilty. Which one of these deserved what they got? And who definitely deserved to be pardoned? If you like this video, check out this one. If villains were charged for their crimes during crash outs.